gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting for Monday, July 9th, 2012, here at the Shaw Auditorium. And before we start, I'd just like to make a comment, certainly to the people in attendance here and for those watching at home. Two of our councillors, Councillor Anderson and Councillor Beswick, are out of town. Far out of town. One is in Hawaii and the other's in Italy, and we're going to try to link them up. If Per Christensen's magic is going to work, we'll be able to speak to them live, and I guess we have both of them now on the line, so I won't welcome them at this point, but as we progress through this thing, we will. What I'd like to mention to them, and I think hopefully they can both hear me at this point, is that we'll have to ask them individually whether they're in favor or opposed to the vote as it takes place, and I would just ask them that they don't hold up fingers and indicate what they want. We'll just have to ask them to verbally tell us what their decisions are. So we'll start, I think, with the meeting, and I think we'll call the meeting to order, and the introduction of late items, please. Ms. Harrison. Thank you, Your Worship. At item 8D1, delegation, Mr. Brock Williamson, regarding DVP 194 at 1135 Farquhar Street. Replace pages 137, 138 of item 8G, DVP 197 at 6500 Raven Road. Add item 9B, minutes of the Grants Advisory Committee meeting held February 15, 2012. Add item 9C, 2012 Grants Advisory Committee recommendations. Thank you very much, and I knew this wasn't going to go well. Anyway, I don't know, that sounded like Councillor Beswick calling from the penalty box. Aloha to all. I just wanted to mention now that, and thank Ms. Joan Harrison for that introduction of the late items, and also to thank Joan for all the work she's put in with the City of Nanaimo. Joan will shortly be leaving us, and I believe tonight is her last meeting, and she'll be moving to the RDN, Regional District of Nanaimo, and taking on some more, I guess, senior duties there. So those of us on the RDN will continue to work with Joan. She's done an outstanding job for the city, and I truly appreciate it. Thanks very much, Joan. I'm naturally assuming that Councillors Beswick and Councillor Anderson are applauding in their various areas of responsibility. So we'll move on and to the adoption of the agenda. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move into the... Your Worship. Yes. If we could ask Councillors Bestwick and Anderson if they could provide their vote as well. This will be interesting. Yes, please. So, Council, in any random order, if the two of you would like to speak up and... In favor. I believe that's George Anderson. Councillor Anderson, in favor. Is Councillor Bestwick there too? He is in favor. The clarity is great. Anyway, that works well. Anyway, so that means that it's more or less unanimous. We'll move, I hope. So moving to the adoption of the minutes as amended. Councillor Graves.
I don't think they're amended, are they? No, they weren't amended.
Oh, they weren't. Oh, yeah, we didn't change on this one, too. So, okay, just do that part then. Moved and seconded. A and B, or just one? A and B. Yes, and all those in favor? Opposed? And we'll actually ask Councillor Anderson and then Councillor Beswick in alphabetical order.
In favor.
Thank you.
In favor.
Thank you. So I think we'll move ahead now into presentations. Number 5, Mr. Ken Balmer of Rethink West to present the strategic plan that we've worked on diligently for the last 6 months. Welcome, sir.
Council, it's a pleasure to arrive at the conclusion of this 5-month process that's involved all of us. The purpose of this presentation is primarily to put the document on the table for your final review and hopefully approval. But since you know it intimately, basically you've been the authors, the secondary purpose is perhaps the most realistic one, to once again engage people of Nanaimo in the process of reviewing this and show them at the very end of the presentation how to access the final draft. And on that subject, We can't say enough about the quality of input, participation, engagement through the process. As you can see on the screen, over 500 people participated in the workshops or one-on-one interviews. We had 4 surveys, 370 people participated in the surveys, and over 3,500 hits on the strategic planning blog, with lots of comments and suggestions. What's most important about that is that most of the engagement came before the draft was even considered. So this wasn't a question of drawing something up, sending it out for comment, and making minor modifications. This was a question of finding out what the people wanted, what they wanted council to focus on, and the draft followed all of that debate. And I won't go through all the detail, but you'll recall we had 3 regional meetings, north, center, south. We had special meetings with seniors, the business community, community organization leaders, teams, interviewed community leaders, and only then did the municipal teams, staff, council members, committees, commissions get involved and add their statements and additional value. At that point, all those ideas were assembled, and a survey provided an opportunity for people to vote. So we had a huge cross-section of recommendations about priorities, for example, or what a good municipal operation would look like, and the voting process took place through a survey. The first draft of the strategic plan, you'll recall, was drafted after a 2-day workshop with council. That draft was sent out in a second survey, and the community, once again, people that have been involved to that point, could make their comments basically page by page right through the entire document. We also, at that point, set up task teams for each of the selected strategic priorities, and those task teams brought approximately 100 people together, experts in each of the 6 areas, to again add value. When the document was finally ready, it was presented on June 6th at a community forum and yet another survey asking primarily if the participants to date thought this document should be approved by council. Incidentally, very high recommendation, 80% said yes. There's a second product here. The plan is relatively small, 20 pages. Common to most strategic planning formats. But we have a binder here of all of the suggestions put in by all participants throughout the process, whether it was the response forms they used at the workshops, or comments on flip charts, or survey responses, comments on the blog. They're all assembled by topic, and frankly, every topic you can imagine is in there. So this is an ongoing reference if you want to get into any type of plan update in the next year or so. There's fresh input from the community on virtually every aspect of your municipal operations and Nanaimo as a community. The plan itself, though, focuses on a vision for the city, mission, values, and operating philosophy for the organization. It talks about your ongoing commitments to sustainability and, of course, strategic priorities and implementation. The vision was developed in response to a simple question. What do you think Nanaimo's potential is as you look 10, 15 years into the future? And these 500 or so people that participated in the beginning gave their answers, and this was the focus, the most common set of comments. By 2025, the city of Nanaimo will proudly feature its harbor and inclusive quality lifestyle, excelling as both the business center and transportation service hub for Vancouver Island. The 3 elements in that vision interact, and I won't go into the detail here, but this was somewhat inspired by the Chamber of Commerce's work on the Successful City Initiative, talking about lifestyle, bringing the right people here, a cultural dynamic community attracting the kind of talent we need to modernize and diversify our economy, and of course the hub concept, connecting us to the world. People come, work here, but we can connect and easily move about doing our business. The document also recognizes 3 ongoing visions that are critical and complement the short vision we've just looked at: Plan Nanaimo, the Social Development Strategy Vision, and the Economic Development Strategy Vision. The mission is perhaps more nuts and bolts, preserving and enhancing quality of life in Nanaimo through efficient, effective, affordable delivery and facilitation of municipal services. Values have been changed only in small ways from the values you've had for the past 5 or so years: accountability, collaboration, integrity, respect, and service. This plan has added an operating philosophy, basically a positioning statement if you're in the communications business, or an organizational corporate vision if you're talking about organizational development. And this was in response to the many, many suggestions we got about how this council, this administration could improve their performance. It's really an aspirational set of statements. In many cases, you're halfway there or almost there, but these are the targets to reach for, and this is basically your commitment to be like that as often and consistently as possible. We found through the process that many of the comments strayed far from the traditional municipal mandate of infrastructure, parks, et cetera, et cetera. So we felt it was important in the plan to address an ongoing commitment to sustainability. And after some discussion, this council decided that 4 pillars, rather than the traditional social, economic, and environmental pillars, were appropriate. So the cultural vitality one was added. And in the document, there's several pages that talk about what you've done in the last year or so and what you intend to do in the next few years in each of those areas. And it's a good list. Once again, I encourage the public to have a good look at it. It's largely in response to what they asked for, and it's evidence that things are well underway. The strategic priorities that are featured in the plan are on the screen at this point. But rather than go through them, I'm going to repeat a little analogy we used at the final community forum on June 6th, just to help the public understand why these are priorities. And the analogy asks you to imagine that your family has been successful and has an income of approximately $100,000 every year, that you've inherited a waterfront family compound, just like the rich and famous, even though your income is only $100,000, and now provide services to several homes and 88 family members. Imagine that your accountant has come to you and said, there are problems developing, and some of them could bankrupt you. Roofs collapse, furnaces have to be fixed, docks, roads, goes on and on. And if you don't start putting funds aside annually in anticipation of big repairs and replacements, you could be in severe trouble. Your assets total $1.9 million, and the accountant is saying you should probably put 1 or 2% of that aside per year, which, if you look at it, is 19 up to 40% of your $100,000 a year income. So fairly demanding. And of course, if you don't, the first expense could be $300,000. You don't have the borrowing capacity, so it's a serious issue. And then, of course, growth in the compound. The well's stressed. Looks like you need another source. You're being told it's $150,000 over the next 8 years. You've got to find that as well out of your $100,000 a year income. Everybody seems to want to enhance the waterfront. They want special stuff there, quality of life things, access, entertainment. And there are lots of pressures to provide services you have not normally provided. People are asking for more in the social, economic, environmental, and cultural area. But worse, there's some grumbling about the leadership job you've been doing on behalf of that extended family, and questions are arising about the efficiency of management of the compound. Well, the bottom line here is that if you add 3 zeros to each one of those themes, you've got the City of Nanaimo's strategic plan. $100 million income expense per year, not 88 family members, but 88,000 residents, not 1.9 million in assets, but billion. The need to protect, say, 19,000 in reserves could be 10 to 15 million annually, 10 to 15% of that $100 million budget. The new water supply, another large amount, $150 million over 9 years, $16 million per year. That's another 16%. Now, rates, of course, look after a lot of that. And then the desire for non-traditional services. The strategic priority in the plan speaks to community building partnerships. You'll not be doing these things on your own, but in partnership, and this plan seriously commits to building those capacity building partnerships. And then finally, taking responsibility to be an excellent municipal government. And that's the positioning statement we looked at a few minutes ago. So those are the priorities in the plan. For each, there's a page or so summarizing the challenge, defining outcomes or results you want in that priority area, and identifying related strategies and initiatives. And there isn't enough time to go through that. We'll simply suggest that anyone who continues to be interested in this process look at the plan itself. Finally, in the plan, there's some comments on implementation. This plan really provides the foundation and framework for ongoing decisions about budget, updating plans, and negotiations with partners in the fields represented by the priorities. It's also a foundation for accountability. Every department in the city will be asked to find ways to contribute to these priorities, to behave according to the organizational operating philosophy. Follow-up action plans, performance measures, and monitoring for all of these priorities will be prepared over the next few months. Every year there will be a progress report to the community through the annual report to the community. And of course the plan itself will be updated annually. That doesn't mean a major change. The front end, for example, probably stays the same, but the strategies and initiatives you learn as you go will be updated annually. And for us, again, we appreciate all the involvement. Council was thoroughly engaged in this process, as were staff, and the community certainly helped a great deal. In fact, they shaped the plan. Now we encourage the community to go to the blog address on the screen, the strategic planning blog, and the first article there contains direct access to the plan. You can download it, and once again, all comments welcome, and your voice, our Nanaimo at nanaimo.ca is the way to get them to us. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Ken. I just want to thank you, Ken, and the staff for Rethink West Incorporated. We did a fair amount of research in trying to find somebody who could walk us through this very complex project, and we're pleased that it was a company from Ladysmith, and in my opinion, they did an excellent job. I just want to make a quick little comment. This evening, it's my... Did you say something? No? This evening, it's my sincere desire that City Council will adopt Nanaimo's first corporate and strategic plan, a document that will guide the corporation over the next few years and beyond. The vote on the strategic plan is considered to be of such importance that two of our council members, Councillors Anderson and Beswick, who are away from the city, will be attending this portion of the council meeting by teleconference. In recent staff and community surveys, over 80% of the participants recommended that council adopt the plan. The result comprises a long-term vision, mission, values, and operating philosophy, and identifies ongoing commitments to economic health, environmental responsibility, social equity, and cultural vitality. The plan also outlines 6 strategic priorities that require focus for council for at least the next 3 to 5 years. In each priority area, there are suggested strategies and initiatives as well as desired outcomes. Statements on implementation are included in the document, and when you have a chance, I encourage you to read it. I'll just quickly before I turn it over to Councillor Kipp, I want to say the 6 strategic directories priorities identified in the strategic plan are asset management, community building partnerships, taking responsibility, transportation and mobility, water, and waterfront enhancement. And the final point I want to make is that the City of Nanaimo commits to continue to collaborate with other organizations and groups to explore how the city can become one of British Columbia's most successful cities. The Successful Cities Initiative is an ongoing process with the next update planned in the fall workshop. The municipality will be a participant in this ongoing process and will collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce to evaluate and, where appropriate, monitor existing and future actions. And I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for their input, and I know Wally Wells is here in attendance, and others from the Chamber that were instrumental in providing an overview which was important to us. I also want to thank not only Council, but of course specifically Councillor Kipp, who chaired this particular committee committee and did an outstanding job in putting all the pieces together. So I'll turn it over to Councillor Kipp, and then just remind you, and certainly it's important for Council to remember, that questions and issues, we have finished as far as we can go now with Rethink West. So the responsibility, because this is our document, we will be answering the questions, and specifically, Councillor Kipp will handle all the questions that are really difficult. So having said that, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. And prior to that, I just want to say I do thank all of the people that were involved, our senior leadership team, right from Mr. Kenning down, Doug Holmes, Ted Swaby, Tom Hickey, Terry Hartley, did put a lot of time in. Our consultants, people think it's almost 7 months since we've started. They worked hard, and you see the binder, the picture. There's a phenomenal amount of backup material that people will be able to use over time. So on that note, I would like to say that this Council approved the Corporate Strategic Plan for 2012-2015 and directs staff to prepare the 2013-2017 financial plan to reflect the adoption of the strategic plan. That's a motion.
Okay.
Open for discussion.
Okay,
Second.
and moved and seconded. Okay, now we'll have discussion. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Councillor Kipp. Thank you, Mr. Balmer and Ms. Clark. Since this is, in my opinion, probably one of the most important votes that I will cast in my civic position here, I've made some notes because I don't want to miss anything, and I'm not going to ad lib. So thank you, Your Worship. As you state in your preamble, this strategic plan restates our commitment to the 4 pillars of sustainability: social equity, environmental responsibility, economic health, and cultural vitality. And it is thanks to these pillars that we were able to identify really a host of strategic priorities and eventually narrow them down to those critical areas that need our immediate attention: water, waterfront enhancement, asset management, transportation and mobility, community building partnerships, and taking responsibility. I have to admit that some were easier understood than others, but I think I've wrapped my head around all of them by now, how they were achieved, and most importantly, why they are urgent. One item gave me concern over time, and that was the manner by which we could fold in, quote unquote, for lack of a better choice of words, the very important Successful Cities initiative of the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce. And I am glad to note that this has been achieved with some last-minute hard work, with some wordsmithing, and yes, with compromise. Thank you, Ollie Wells, thank you, David Whitty, and thank you, Michael Delvers. By necessity, this strategic plan has to be our plan, Council's plan. And by that same necessity, we need to accept that if we want the maximum amount of citizens' buy-in, we must continue the dialogue with many organizations, be they the not-for-profits, the neighborhoods, or any other stakeholder group or individuals that you can think of. I do believe that much has been achieved in the past 5 months. Not only does this plan provide us with a distinct focus as to what we should be concentrating on, it also provides this Council and staff with an opportunity to cooperate as we have never before, something I'm sure all of Nanaimo's citizens will be grateful for. Finally, the proof is always in the eating of the pudding. And the first challenge will come with budget time, when we shall have to put the financial meat on this skeleton, so to speak. And later on we shall, with the assistance of others, measure the results and then measure some more for the benefit of all in this municipality. I certainly shall be voting in favor of this strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patchy. Any other discussion on it? I certainly will be supporting it, obviously, as I indicated earlier. And so at this point, I would maybe turn over to our telemarketers on the other line there. Is that, I keep hearing water dripping. Is this homemade brew they're making there, or what is that happening? That sound is very distracting, Councillor Anderson. Anyway, we wanted to know if, I hope it was water dripping, if there's any comments you wanted to make, and then we'll call upon you, and then follow it up with Councillor Beswick with comments, and then whether you are in favour or opposed to the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may speak, it's a bit strange. I'm currently watching the council meeting live, but there's a delay, so you're still talking, actually. But anyways, I also prepared something as well, so I could speak to this, and I just continue from there. So I wanted to say thank you to the people of Nanaimo for being involved with the strategic planning process. The community's Asset Council provide leadership and a vision for the future, and I believe through this process, City Council has done exactly that. There are many important challenges facing our city, such as asset management, water, and others, and it's of the utmost importance that we do what we can to provide the essential service for our citizens, but also make sure we leave a city for future generations. But also with the additions on community building partnerships, instead of always just focusing on working alone, but bringing in other groups such as BIU, the Chamber, the Nanaimo First Nations, and others, it's important that we continue to move forward on that aspect. Transportation and mobility, and the waterfront enhancement. For me, I believe our waterfront is one of the biggest assets we have to this community, and it's not something that we capitalize enough, and it's something that we should be using to attract more people to our downtown, encourage a healthier community, new modes of transportation, whether that's by walking or biking, and also we have one of the most beautiful waterfronts in the world. So I think it's something that it's a great priority that Council has adopted. But of all of the points that has come out of this strategic plan, I think the most important is taking responsibility. And in order for the strategic plan to be successful, Council and staff have to work together collaboratively to make sure that it becomes implemented and it's not a document that's just pie in the sky. This is a strategic plan, in my opinion, which is a collective vision for the future of our city that the entire community can be proud of. I would like to thank our city staff. We're lucky to have some of the best staff in the country who are dedicated to making our community the best place on earth every single day, and especially to Terry Hartley, who spent numerous hours with this process. And to Ken and Brenda, thank you for facilitating the entire process and doing all that you did and helping Council with making its vision as clear and direct as possible for the community. And to my fellow councillors, Bestwick, Brennan, Kip, Greaves, Johnstone, Pat Shee, I think that's it. I'm just kidding. And Councillor McKay and Mayor Rattan, for the time you spent in ensuring the outcomes of this process also had the community's best interests at heart. Lastly, I'm happy that Council did everything it could to be transparent and open, especially in making sure that the community was involved in the entire process. I believe this is going to be a dynamic action plan which will move our city forward in a positive direction. So once again, thank you, Nanaimo City Council, city staff, Ken and Brenda, and the entire community for caring about making our community a better place. So I will be supporting this plan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. You actually came across very loud and clear and very profound indeed, as always. And since it's... And
I look beautiful with the empty space there, too.
It's the quietest that space has been for months. Anyway, I just also want to mention that for those that are paying attention, and if I'm still speaking while you are speaking, well, one of us is rude, so let me speak first before you say anything. The one thing, it's 3 o'clock in the morning where you are, and I'm just impressed you were able to get the crowd in the bistro to be quiet just for the moment while you were on the phone, because it was a huge asset to our audience here as well. But thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Mayor, actually everyone saw your picture on the screen right now, and they're like, wow, what a good-looking guy. So they've actually been screaming in the background.
Look, I'm right out of small change. I'm sorry. That was it. But anyway, but thank you. And listen, on a serious note, enjoy yourself, and we look forward to seeing you back, Councillor Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Gee whiz, what a tough act to follow. Everybody's throwing around so many accolades. Your Worship, thanks very much. I just want to compliment Brenda and the entire staff and all participants, of course, the members of the community, all the participants, including limited to Chamber of Commerce, the First Nations, and many other stakeholders, including our very valued city employees. That said, I think Councillor Patchy made a very important statement when he said about the meat on the bone, and the most important thing that we're going to be able to do now is follow the strategic plan through into the budgeting process and ensure that our sustainability is one of being able to pay for these things that we intend to provide. When I read preserving and enhancing quality of life, absolutely that is critical to moving forward. And of course, as we develop the 2013 budget process. So, not to be as long-winded, Your Worship, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that. I am in favor of the strategic plan and initiative, the 4 pillars and the 6 initiatives, and I won't repeat them. Everybody's doing well back home, and see you in a week.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Bestwick, and we also wish you well in Maui. So, and thank you for your input. Some very, very good points were made, and I think it's a pretty exciting time for us, and we certainly appreciate your help as well as Councillor Anderson's in moving this forward. Just as, if I can, to Mr. Christensen, are the 2 callers going to stay on, or what's the status? I didn't get a report back on that.
No, they will depart whenever you...
After the vote. Okay. So there's the motion on the floor, and we'll ask, first of all, we'll ask those present here if they're in favor. All in favor? Opposed? And now we'll start. Councillor Anderson, you've already committed. I assume you're saying yes, you're in support?
Yes, in favor.
And Councillor Bestwick, you're also in support? In favor?
Favor.
Yep. Okay, thank you both, gentlemen, and the motion is unanimous.
It is written in the terms of reference that upon adoption that the committee would be dissolved, but it would be appropriate at this time to have a motion to that effect.
Did you got the motion, did you? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Could Ms. Harrison, do you want to read out the motion so that
We just
Goes back to Hawaii.
who's left and who's on now on the phone?
George.
I'm still here.
Good heavens, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Still there, not here.
Actually, 4.
4 in the morning? Oh, daylight saving?
Yeah.
So, Ms. Harrison, do you want to just read the motion that, and then maybe Councillor Anderson may wish to vote on it then?
the motion on the floor is that the Strategic Planning Steering Committee be dissolved.
It's been moved.
In favor.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded, and I think we are all in favor. Councillor Bestwick, are you there, or have you? He's gone. Okay. So I think that finishes that part of the. Did we all vote on that thing? I think we did vote on it. Did we vote? We did vote.
Oh, you did, yeah.
You know, actually, Councillor Anderson, I might need your help there. If you could just count the hands up here, because we're having a little bit of problem who voted for what here. Anyway, thank you very much, George. Have a good time, and we'll move along into the...
and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, all the best. Bye-bye. The next part is Ms. Susan Clift, Director of Engineering and Public Works, to give an update on Reservoir Number 1. Ms. Clift? Kind of a hard act to follow, isn't it?
Sure is. Through your worship, members of council, Tonight, I am delighted to announce the commencement of construction of one of the phases of the City of Nanaimo's project to enhance and upgrade the quality of drinking water for the city. This project has three components: the water treatment plant itself, the reservoir number one, the new reservoir number one, and its associated energy recovery facility, and the associated pipelines with each. I put this picture up here because this is the old reservoir number one. It's 100 years old. It's a surface structure where the water is not protected by a cover, and it contains 59 million liters of water. So in the big picture, these are the components of the project that is currently underway, and there are two, of course, the pipelines are the red lines. The water treatment plant is outside of the city boundary. The pink line is the political boundary between the city of Nanaimo and the regional district. And the dot is the new reservoir and energy facility, and the red is the pipeline work. Now I'm showing this picture because this is the new reservoir and energy recovery facility. It's very difficult to see, and there's a reason for that. You can see the energy recovery facility here on the left, and then here is the reservoir. And what you'll notice is that you can't see it. It is lower than what the trees will be when the project is completed, and there's a large berm here. This is the view that you will see from the Nanaimo Lakes Road. Now, I'm going to admit this is what it will look like when the trees grow to mature size, but this is what it will look like. So in November 2010, Council had a discussion about where this project was going to be sited, and this was the location chosen. The old reservoir number one is right here at the bottom on the other side of the parkway, and here's the new one, is the dot. A lot of discussion took place at that time about where we were going to put it, and the decision was made on the basis of cost, and what I mean by that is long-term operating costs. The elevation at this location was ideal for the system to work without pumping, works using gravity. Also, it was our best location to reduce community, environmental, and operational impacts. I'm going to go over the budget of what we are about to see in this phase of work. We're going to start the pipeline, and we are going to start site clearing, and that will be very shortly at $4.5 million. The concrete reservoir and energy recovery facility is budgeted at $6.85 million. We have a grant of $7.8 million, with the remainder of the money, which is $3.5 million, coming from our water reserve fund. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the phases and what we're going to do, when it's going to happen, and its impacts on the users in the area. The new pipeline is 1.3 kilometers long. It's constructed from the old reservoir number one to the new, and it's going to be mostly along the Nanaimo Lakes Road site, and it will start on August the 15th, so you can expect work to be starting on that date to continue to almost the end of the year. We are expecting people to notice the site clearing, and what will happen is that the site, and here we have the imprint here of the site of the reservoir itself on the left, and the energy recovery on the right, as well as the entry driveway. That site will be cleared on August the 15th, and the reason why it's being done now, it's going to be the laydown area for the pipeline construction. So what are the impacts of each of these phases? Well, in the park itself, there will be trail users who will be impacted for about a week and won't be able to use one of the trails. Also, pipeline construction will impact users of Nanaimo Lakes Road for about a week, and it will really just slow them down. There will still be access. So it's pretty minimal impact. This is what I wanted to show you. This is what the reservoir looks like. It put into a berm, and it's only 12 feet above grade when you take into account the berm. So what that means is that it will have a very low profile from the road. This is actually from the trail, but 12 feet above that ground level is really does make sure it has a low impact visually. The construction of these two facilities won't start until January, and it will continue until June of 2014. The impact, it's fading out. The impacts for this phase of the project will be heavy equipment on Nanaimo Lakes Road itself for about 3 weeks. So that will impact the users and the residents on Nanaimo Lakes Road for 3 weeks. And what we will see for the duration of the project is fencing along the trailway that is right behind the site for about a year. There are no trails impacted in terms of their use other than that 1 week. Now, I wanted to show you this for a few reasons. As part of the development permit process, we were required to do a tree survey, and the pale green areas, which are along here, along the road, are areas where all the trees are preserved. Here, 1, 2, 3, and down here. So all the existing vegetation in these pale areas, and they're fairly large trees in those areas, are going to remain. So there was a survey done, and let me just get the numbers right. There were 18 significant trees on this site, and by significant it means a caliper of over 31 inches, so wide, and 15 of those will be removed. In addition, about 200 trees will be removed as part of the site clearing. To replace the 200 trees, however, we'll be planting 225 trees, of which 75% will be coniferous. So I put the species up there, Douglas fir, cedar, and hemlocks. 25% will be deciduous, big leaf maples, vine maples, native dogwoods, and the native bitter cherry. A large number of sword ferns, a large number of red twig dogwood, as well as Nootka roses. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that when we went to the design panel, the panel was very complimentary about the design and how it fit in really well with the existing landscape, especially the plantings. They are matching the natural area. We thought it was important to let Council know and the public know what is happening with this project. So our communication strategy starts with tonight. It starts with this announcement. And we will be following up with very large format signage on the site, both for the trail users and people in the parking lot, so they're aware of what's going on. We'll be doing newspaper and radio releases, but I noticed Facebook and Twitter isn't on here, but of course we will be using social media as well as putting this information on our website. One of the things that was discussed in 2010 was the use of the compensating use of this reservoir in existing parkland. And this map shows two different shades of green, where the bright green is existing park and the duller green adjacent is City of Nanaimo land, not designated park, and we are going to be now exploring and coming back to Council with how we can use that lands appropriately for park use in the future. That's the end of my presentation, and I'm here with Richard Harding to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Ms. Clift, very much. Would you mind going back to the tree management slide that you had up there?
No problem.
A minute ago? And could you explain to me if, as you stated, 200 trees are going to be removed, and you're going to replant 225. I'm kind of at a loss to figure out where those 225 will go, considering that the reservoir will take up considerable space.
I think a lot of them will be smaller trees as well, and there will be a number that won't survive, so it's important to put more in than we take out. I think that was the requirement, that we would have to compensate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think it's going to be a very exciting development and a very necessary one for us. So thank you, Ms. Clift. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move down into number 8, Community Safety and Development. 8A, Development Permit DP 779 at 10 Chapel Street. Staff recommendation that Council issue Development Permit DP 779 at 10 Chapel Street with a variance to the minimum front yard setback from 1.5 meters to 0 meters. Someone like to move that? Moved. Second. And I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Under 8B, Development Permit DP 787 for 6253 Farber Way. Staff recommendation that Council issue Development Permit DP 787 at 6253 Farber Way with the following variances. First, to extend the previously reduced character protection zone of the Nanaimo Parkway from 20 meters to 0 meters. 2, reduce the landscaping requirement of the zoning and mobile home park bylaws from 3 meters to 0 meters. 3, and final, vary the accessory building setback requirement of the zoning and mobile home park bylaws to allow an accessory building to be located in a front and side yard. Moved. Seconded?
Question.
Yeah, is there a seconder? Councillor McGee, sorry. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I just think that this might be an appropriate time for staff maybe to explain why this particular development permit is not going to affect the protection zone, the parkway protection zone, in the sense that some of us might worry about.
Mr. Swaby, or who's going to do it? Oh, sorry. Wrong button.
Are we on?
You're on.
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Patchy. This site is located at the toe of a slope of an embankment from the parkway. It's the existing mobile home park, the Crest Mobile Home Park. And Council approved an expansion of the mobile home park back in 2006. This is an application for a 2-car garage to be placed in a gravel driveway, which is in front of one of the mobile home park stalls. And in the opinion of staff, this won't create a precedent for other parkway setback requirements.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. And further to that, Mr. Tucker, if you could explain that this will not be visual from the parkway at all. It'll be under the crest of the...
You're on.
It won't be seen by the traveling public. It's below the embankment, and if you stopped your car beside and looked over, you would see it, but not under normal driving conditions. No, that's correct.
Thank you.
Good point. Okay, I see no further questions on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into item C, Development Permit DP 790 at 5885 Uplands Drive. Staff recommendation that Council issue Development Permit DP 790 at 5085 Uplands Drive, which would renew the previously approved Development Permit DP 666, including the following variances. The first variance is required building height. The maximum height allowed is 14 meters. The proposed building height is 15.083 meters for a variance of 1.083 meters. The required side yard setback, the required side yard setbacks are 3 meters. The proposed south property line is 2.8 meters, a proposed variance of 0.2 meters. The proposed west property line side yard is 1.2 meters, a variance of 1.8 meters. And the required rear yard setback The required rear yard setback is 10.5 meters. The proposed rear yard setback is 3.6 meters for a variance of 6.9 meters.
Move staff's
recommendation. Second. Councillor Johnson, did you want from before? Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to reiterate that this is simply a renewal of previous development permits. So anything that we see here was passed some time ago, and it's just for renewal purposes.
Good clarification. It's just a renewal of the previous one. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into D, Development Variance Permit DVP 194 at 1135 Farquhar Street. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 194. And I show on my list a delegation, Mr. Brock Williamson. Is Mr. Williamson not in attendance now? So is there anyone here in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to 1135 Farquhar Street? Hearing none, the staff recommendation that council issue development variance permit DVP 194 at 1135 Farquhar Street. If someone would like to move that, moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into development variance permit DVP 195 at 2340 Wild Dove Road. Staff recommendation that council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 195 at 2340 Wild Dove Road. Move. Second. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving down to development variance permit DVP 197 at 6500 Raven Road. There's a delegation, Mr. David Stephen.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Yes.
I believe we've skipped item F, DVP 196 on Labio.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. I apologize. Thank you. Development variance permit DVP 196 at 2469 Labio Road. Staff recommendation that council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 196 at 2469 Labio Road. Move. Seconded. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Again, and for the same reasons, I think it might be appropriate if we could get staff, maybe Mr. Tucker, to explain why this is coming back to us for the second time.
Maybe for clarification, you might want to expand on that.
Yes, Your Worship. This was subject to a rezoning application in 2011 and was adopted by City Council on May 16th of 2011. That rezoning application was to retain an existing single-family dwelling adjacent to Labio Road and for the remainder of the site to be rezoned to multifamily for a townhouse-style development. When the maps were transferred for bylaw 4500, which was our new bylaw adopted last summer, the entire site, including the portion that was to be retained as a single-family dwelling, was rezoned to the R6 zone. This variance is to allow that single-family to be house to be subdivided off, and we'll be bringing forward a further housekeeping correction to council in the fall.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions on it. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move into item G, development variance permit DVP 197 at 6500 Raven Road. We show a delegation, Mr. David Stephen. Staff recommendation. Welcome, sir. The staff recommendation is that council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 197 at 6500 Raven Road. And welcome, sir. You can, you're on to go. Do you have a little presentation you want to make or simply answer questions?
Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. In the interest of your time, I did prepare a couple of additional handouts. We're new to the city of Nanaimo and we want to build a permanent home here. But I think I'll just leave it. Are there any questions? Okay.
I don't see any at this point, and I don't think there's any issues that staff have, but are you on the button here? Did you put it on? Councillor Patchy.
Well, it's more a statement than anything else. I just want to congratulate you on your generous neighbors, the Murrays, who seem to have no objection at all that this is going to be a little closer to them than it might have been. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you. So I see no other speakers, sir. Thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Oh, you're opposed? I'm sorry. Councillor Brennan opposed?
I didn't hear you call for discussion.
Oh, yeah, we did. Well, Councillor Patchy spoke. Well, why don't we just go ahead and push the button and put your name on it, and that'll help. Good. Councillor Brennan. And then is Council happy with revoting again, just for the interest of clarity?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for indulging me. I don't support this motion in that it eliminates, it changes where the heat pump, where the owner wishes the heat pump to be. And I concur with the owner. I think that the technology on this, on these appliances has changed since we first looked at this. And when we first looked at this, we were unwilling to use decibels as a measurement. I didn't really think that was the best way of proceeding at that time. I still don't. And I just think that we are being too intrusive on this one, and that the homeowner has a reason for wanting to site it where he does, and it will impact the use of his backyard if he doesn't get that variance. And I don't think that the evidence to support our decision to eliminate that is reasonable. So I won't be supporting the elimination of that.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp.
Can we deal with these seriatim on a divided issue? Or is it a single issue on this one? Because I'd like to deal with them seriatim.
Mr. Tucker, I think it's a single issue, is it not?
Yes, just for clarification of council, at this stage in the process, we're asking council to authorize statutory notification to deliver notices in the neighborhood. This item would then come back to council on the August council meeting. So the decision to approve the content of the decision is in August. This is so that we can notify the neighborhood and proceed with the statutory requirements.
Okay, I think there's a further comment. Mrs.
Your Worship, I think Councillor Kipp's point is a valid one, because staff was only recommending one of the variants. If council would like to proceed with the application as the applicant has made it, that would be the appropriate motion, and then we'll notify that way, rather than supporting our recommendation, which only supported the one variance.
Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. My concern with the motion as it sits is I can't support the location of a heat pump in the side yard. I know that and I understand the point that they've improved, but not everybody buys the improved model. Not everybody buys and this model is, but we could open the door, and we went through a process to move them from side yards to rear yard to help people with this. I'm not certain if the heat pump in your backyard is a disturbance to your backyard, then what's it going to do to the side yard? So I understand that's one of the concerns. Am I correct on that, staff? What's the reason for moving it to side yard?
Your Worship, Councillor Kipp is correct. The mitigating factor that the applicant makes in this case is that there's a 6-meter setback because of the easement that exists. So he's arguing in effect that you're getting the same setback as you would in the way that council adopted the bylaw.
Because there's a side yard allowance at this property.
And an easement in addition to the 1.5 meters, yes.
Okay, with council's indulgence, I'd like to ask Mr. Stephen if you'd like to come back again now. We didn't have any questions for you before, but now there seems to be quite a number of them. So maybe you can put an answer to some of the questions you've heard now.
Yes, I do understand that simply because a new model comes out, that's not a good reason to change a bylaw or allow a variance from a bylaw. We have an unusual circumstance with 2 easements, one on our side of the property line and one on the neighbor's side. The current bylaw requires 4.5 meters from the side lot line.
1.5 meters.
4.5 meters.
For the heat pump,
For the heat pump.
Yes.
And the minimum setback for the other residents would be 1.5 meters. So there's a minimum requirement of 6 meters from the heat pump to the neighbor's home, correct? There's also a minimum requirement that it be 3 meters from the rear lot line. So if you have 2 lots, rear lot lines facing each other, that's another 6 meters. If you look on the material that was published, the site plan, you'll find there's 7.5 meters from our proposed heat pump site to the neighbor's home. You'll also see a letter from the neighbor saying they would prefer it to be in the side yard because that removes it from their backyard. And these are level entry, ocean view, walkout basement lots. People don't buy them to sit in the front yard. They buy them for the view in the backyard, and they will be on a rear deck whenever possible or on a patio. So I have spoken to the neighbor down the hill, which is the north side on Ptarmigan, and I really didn't think of him at first because I thought this will move it farther from him. I did speak to the owner of the property that I'm asking for it to be sited on, his side, and they signed a letter saying that's their preference. I spoke to the person who owns the lot on the other side, and they said even with a 1.5 meter setback of the 2 homes, they'd prefer the heat pump in the side yard to the rear yard.
The first neighbor you referred to was Mr. and Mrs. Murray, was that correct?
That's correct. Okay. And they are the neighbors on the west side. So they're on the side where it's proposed to be sited.
Okay. Does council have any other questions for the delegation now that we've returned them to the podium? You do or you don't?
I do. It doesn't stay on.
Just go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. You researched the type of heat pump by Mitsubishi as being the lowest decibel rating?
Yes, they have published as low as 52 in the reading material I clipped off the internet. That's the first page of the handout. Mm-hmm. I've researched Trane, Lennox, York. They all specify somewhere about 70.
Just for your information, Your Worship, our neighbor has a heat pump on the side yard setback, and I purposely opened all the windows today because it was going, but it was just a purr, like, you could barely hear it, and very close to the window where I was sitting, and I certainly didn't have a problem with it. I know we've made a bylaw, but in this circumstance, I'd certainly support it if your neighbors do support it. And I know staff's concern is that in future, another neighbor may not like it, their future neighbor. So I guess you'd have to reason with that neighbor at the time.
Yeah, that's a possibility, but the 6 meter easement is going to be there in perpetuity and nothing can be built on it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Councillor McKay?
Thank you, Your Worship. This question is through the chair to staff is, was it intended that the heat pumps would be 6 meters from the adjacent building, either rear yard, side yard? Was it always intended that there would be a minimum 6 meters?
The intent was that it would be located in the rear yards only, that it would not be allowed in the side yards or the front yards. So the regulation is built around location at the rear of the building.
So there is no distance? Minimum distance?
It's as the delegate explained, it's 4.5 meters from the side lot line at the rear of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions on it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, I think if we're all, Councillor Brennan, go ahead.
Could I have some clarification then as to what the motion is right now? And I'm just wondering if I if somebody or me needs to make an amendment to include both the things to go to public hearing, and then we could do them.
Okay, Ms. Harrison.
Excuse me, the motion on the floor is the staff recommendation that council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit number DVP 197 at 6500 Raven Road.
But that only potentially authorizes the one. If you want to notify on both, you should make an amendment.
Then I would move that. I'm a little surprised about that because it doesn't say that. It says the staff recommendation is something different, but I don't know what. I'll make the recommended amendment. I would move the recommended amendment, which would be to allow the heat pump in the side, I think. Yes. So I make that.
Okay, and I guess
that amendment.
We'll see if Ms. Harrison or maybe Mr. Kenny are we going to assume that's a friendly amendment?
I think there should be a seconder, and it should be voted on because it's a substantial change to the motion.
Okay.
Second.
So you've seconded that one there. And do you have, so we're going to have two separate motions, Ms. Harrison, then?
This would be a motion to amend the statutory notification to include both variances. So we would be voting on the amendment
first, okay? So is everybody on council comfortable with that? So on the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed? We have Councillor Kipp and Councillor Greaves opposed. Balance of council in favor. The amendment passes. And on the main motion?
Motion is amended.
All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Kipp and Councillor Greaves opposed. Balance of council, so the motion passes. Okay, so we're going to move down into item H, rezoning application RA 294 at 380 5th Street. Staff recommendation that Council 1 receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.025, and 2, direct staff to secure the community contribution prior to the adoption of the bylaw should Council support the bylaw at the third reading.
Staff's recommendation.
Staff recommendation on 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
And you're seconding 1 and 2. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? No. Motion carries. And do we want to move ahead with the bylaw now, Ms. Harrison? So the bylaw, if we've approved it 1 and 2 on H, we'll move into bylaw 1 and approve that now, and that's that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.025.
Yes. Your Worship, did we in fact pass second reading?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my understanding is we did. Ms. Harrison? The motion was for move for 1 and 2, and Councillor Patchy seconded both 1 and 2, and I specifically said, is it 1 and 2? Yeah.
Forgive me.
We're happy? So we're going into the bylaw. 1, the zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.025, RA 294, to rezone part of 380, number 380 is 5th Street, from single dwelling residential R1 to row house residential R7 to allow for 8 fee simple row house dwellings past first reading. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And 2, that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.025 pass second reading. Moved and seconded. And all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're going into rezoning application RA 295 at 2021 Northfield Road. Staff recommendation that Council 1 receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.026, and 2, direct staff to secure the community contribution and road dedication prior to adoption of the bylaw should Council support the bylaw at third reading. So if somebody would like to move, and we're going to move and seconded, it would be either Councillor McKay and Councillor Brennan moved and seconded, and we moved 1 and 2, I understand, and so on that, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And now we'll move into the bylaw. That zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.026, RA 295, to rezone 2012 Northfield Road from single dwelling residential R1 to row house residential R7 to allow for 3 fee simple row house dwellings past First reading, sorry, I lost my place there. Move the motion, seconder, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And that second one is that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.026 pass second reading. Move second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Rezoning application RE 297 at 2350 Barclay Road. Staff recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.027 and 2, direct staff to secure the community contribution and a covenant for general building design prior to adoption of the bylaw should council support the bylaw at third reading.
Staff's recommendation.
Move the recommendation. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into the bylaw portion now. That zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.027 RA 297 to rezone 2350 Barclay Road from single dwelling residential R1 to single dwelling residential small lot R2 to facilitate a two-lot subdivision passed first reading. Move. Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And 2, that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.027 pass second reading. Moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into road closure. Portion of Kalinda Street West at 6085 Uplands Drive. Staff recommendation to Council 1, receive the report pertaining to highway closure and dedication removal, a portion of Kalinda Street adjacent to 6085 Uplands Drive, bylaw 2012 number 7151. Do you want to do these seriatim, or should we just do all three at one time? Any preference from staff? No preference from staff. Let's move all three. So I'll go into 2. Authorize the transfer of the proposed road closure to the property owner at 6085 Uplands Drive, Nanaimo Senior Village Holdings Limited, and direct the mayor and corporate officer to execute the conditional contract of purchase and sale. And 3, direct staff to proceed with public notice of the road closure for a portion of Kalinda Street. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into the bylaw section now. That highway closure and dedication removal, portion of Kalinda Street adjacent to 6085 Uplands Drive, bylaw 2012 number 7151 passed first reading. Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And 2, that highway closure and dedication removal, portion of Kalinda Street, adjacent to 6085 Uplands Drive, bylaw 2012 number 7151, passed second reading. Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into property maintenance, bylaw 1990 number 3704. It's requested that a councillor herein wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance for the properties listed below, and the staff recommendation of the council pursuant to property maintenance bylaw 1990 number 3704, direct the owners of the following properties to remove the materials as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. The first property is 626 Halliburton Street, blackberry bushes and hogweed. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 626 Halliburton Street? The second item is 205 5th Street, derelict silver/burgundy truck, derelict blue car, discarded wood, household garbage, newspapers, noxious weeds, and miscellaneous debris. I don't know what that is, but anyway, is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to concerns with 205 5th Street? The third one is 603 Nickel Street, graffiti removal. Is there anyone in attendance that, oh, that's not the graffiti. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to tell me it's not, 603 Nickel Street? And the fourth and final one, I believe, is the boat. Yeah, and that's 101 South Street, derelict boat. As is, where is. So, is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to the derelict boat at 101 South Street? If somebody would like to move the staff recommendation. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move into unresolved building deficiencies, bylaw contravention notices, section 5.7. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies for the properties listed below. Staff recommendation that council by resolution instruct the manager of legislative services to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land, Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under section 5.7 of the community charter. The first property is 409 Belmont Place. Illegal construction, retaining walls, stairs, and landing built over the City of Nanaimo right-of-way. Is there anyone in attendance that'd like to speak to matters related to 409 Belmont Place? The second property is at 135 Nickel Street. Illegal construction, convert commercial building from retail use to restaurant, dwelling unit, and erect a fascia sign. Is there anyone in attendance that'd like to speak to matters related to 135 Nickel Street? Seeing none, if somebody would like to move the staff recommendation.
I have a question.
Yes. Oop, my screen went dead. Councillor Pat, well, let's move it and second. Second, Councillor Patchy.
Just a question to staff. And I'm looking at the file summary where the complaint was received on the 14th of June. Inspection completed on the 19th. Correspondence was mailed on the 21st. And a letter advising of Section 57 on the 25th. That's 11 days. Is that a reasonable number of days in case someone's out of town? Or I find it kind of short.
Your Worship, to Councillor Patchy, given the severity of this issue, a stop work order was posted and the owner was made aware that there was a problem with the construction he has undertaken. We tried to move this forward to Council as soon as possible to seek the compliance by the owner.
Okay, so the owner is aware of this timeline?
I believe so. I haven't spoken to him directly, but yes, we've corresponded with him, and the inspector dealt with him with the stop work order.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so on item 1 and 2, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Corporate Services, the appointment of a corporate officer. Staff recommendation that Council 1 rescind the appointment of Ms. Joan Harrison as corporate officer for the City of Nanaimo effective 2012, July 13. And 2, appoint Ms. Kristen King as corporate officer for the City of Nanaimo effective 2012, July 16. Move. Second.
Don't do it.
So, yeah.
Say no.
She could? Well, that's... Don't you just get the RDN to talk to Councillor Brennan about that, probably. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into minutes of the Grants Advisory Committee meeting held 2012, February the 15th, to be introduced by Chair Councillor Johnston.
I'd like to move that the Council receive the minutes of the Grants Advisory Committee meeting held 2012, February 15th.
Seconder? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then the 2012 Grants Advisory Committee recommendations.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Council award a permissive tax exemption to Pacific Child and Family Enrichment Society, PTE-01.
Doing business as the Pacific Care.
Yes.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Community Services, 10A, approval of RFP 1284, supply and delivery of janitorial and cleaning supplies, rather cleaning products for the City of Nanaimo. Staff recommendation that Council award the contract for RFP 1284, supply and delivery of janitorial and cleaning products for the City of Nanaimo to Planet Clean Canada Incorporated for the low bid price of $274,591.53, including HST, for a 3-year period. Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Culture Commission meeting held 2012, May 23rd. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Council receive the minutes of Parks, Recreation, and Culture Commission meeting held 2012, May 23.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And travel assistance grant, Nanaimo Youth Soccer Club, Girls Under 17 Gold Division, BC Soccer Provincials in Kelowna. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to move that Council approve the application for a travel assistance grant to the Nanaimo Youth Soccer Club in the amount of $850 for 17 players to attend the Girls U17 Gold Division BC Soccer Provincials being held in Kelowna, BC. The application meets all of the travel grant criteria.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And, Your Worship, I'd just like to say at this time, congratulations to that team. They defeated the Port Coquitlam girls this weekend in Kelowna and are provincial champions. So that's money.
Congratulations
well
for them.
2-1. Yeah.
Well done. Okay, Travel Assistance Grant, Nanaimo Judo Club, 2012 National Judo Championships, Toronto. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Your Worship, that Council approved the application for a travel assistance grant to the Nanaimo Judo Club in the amount of $300 for 3 players to attend the 2012 National Judo Championships being held in Toronto, Ontario. The application meets all of the travel grant criteria.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Travel Assistance Grant, Nanaimo Bike Polo Cascadia Regional Championships, North American Qualifier, East Vancouver. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Your Worship, that Council approved the application for a travel assistance grant to the Nanaimo Bike Polo in the amount of $300 for 6 players to attend the Cascadia Regional Championships, North American Qualifier, being held in East Vancouver, BC. The application meets all of the travel grant criteria.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And Travel Assistance Grant, Upper Island Metro Soccer, BC Soccer Provincial A Cup Championships in Kamloops. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. That Council approved the application for a travel assistance grant for Upper Vancouver Island Metro Soccer in the amount of $300 for 6 players to attend the BC Soccer Provincial A Cup Championships being held in Kamloops, BC. The application meets all of the grant criteria.
Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving down into, as we go down the list, actually we're right down to other business. Sorry, and then none, so we'll move into question period, agenda items only. Yes, did you have something?
On item number 11.
Item 11, right.
I was hoping we could get clarification on bylaws, zoning amendment bylaw 4500.008 and 011 as to their status.
Your Worship, those are the ones to Councillor McKay that you asked? Yeah, so those are still waiting registration of covenants.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. That was okay, so let's move down into the question period, agenda items only. See, you guys have been prompted to say.
Robert Fuller, 3350 Hammond Bay Road. Many of the recommendations in the strategic plan are laudable, but myself and I'm sure many other citizens have some concerns of the financial nature. 2 of the 6 strategic priorities in the strategic plan that are listed as all important are taking responsibility to be an excellent municipal government and asset management. One would assure that strong fiscal management would fall somewhere into these 2 categories. Well, Councilmember Pache said all of the meat hasn't been put onto the bones, and we won't know the total cost ensuing in all of these recommendations. I'm just going to ask Council 3 questions. Is Council going to ensure that the citizens of Nanaimo that all efforts will be made not to indebt the public and protect the citizens from tax increases before major projects identified in the strategic plan proceed?
Well, I think, Councillor Kipp, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, I can try to answer that. The interesting thing about this, with the measurables in it, when council looks at it, when staff develops the budget and the spending for it, we have the ability to say, no, we can't move forward on that. And with one of the measurables, we have the ability to remove that strategic priority as it is from our plan. If we feel it's one, too costly, bad timing, those type of things. So that's built into the plan also. And I think the worst thing would be is, I guess we went out to the community first, got the ideas, and now that was one of my extended motions, was to get the financial papers in order now to see what this is really going to cost now that we've hammered out those 6 priorities. So, and I know from my perspective, one of the reasons of the strategic plan was to bring focus to our spending have the ability to say, no, that doesn't really meet our list, so to be able to move some things off very quickly, or work on the things that we can identify and do, fund them, get them done, scratch them off the list, and maybe get on to something else. Or, if time has it, save the money.
So the answer is yes?
Yes.
Okay.
The long answer is yes.
The long answer is yes. Then I guess my other two questions are pretty much moot, and that is, what is the cost to implement the new strategic plan, and how will this affect the tax increases in the 2012-2015 financial plan? I guess I'll have to wait for that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Coming very
we haven't even gotten...
because staff is having to prepare the budgets very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that for question period? And if not, we'll entertain a motion to move adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Yes.
I just wanted to say, if Councillor Anderson is still listening, did you notice that how quickly this meeting went, Councillor Anderson?
Yeah. Oh, good heavens. It's what, 5 o'clock in the morning now? We